the year is almost over again. And after I had my tiny existential crisis about how fast time flies by, I was starting to think, like, why does time feel so fast all of a sudden? I know when I looked into it, like 80% of adults have this feeling that the years go by faster and faster, but I feel like especially after the COVID years, things have sped up quite a bit. And look, I'm into psychology, I got my psychology bachelor's, so I know that these things are made up of a lot of factors, and that's why I wanted to dive in. And also, I've found out that there are actually a couple of things you can do to prevent this feeling. So today I'm going to talk about this. My name is Ismail Jem, a psychology and digital business graduate, and now I work as a consultant. And I want to use my channel to talk about things that I found out that help me and those around me. But today it's specifically time perception. We knew about this quote of like Albert Einstein of if you sit on a hot stove for a minute, it feels like an hour. But if you sit next to a pretty girl, an hour feels like a minute. This kind of is pretty important for one of the mechanisms behind time perception. But to give you an overview, there are actually two main mechanisms for it. And one of them is prospective time perception, so the perception that we have in this moment. And there's also retrospective time perception, so the perceived time when we look at the past. For prospective time perception, actually, the really important thing is attention. With attention, the idea is that if you're really engrossed in a task, so if you're fully devoted to it, if you watch a really fun movie, if you have a really fun conversation, you don't have any capacities anymore to actually think about time. Time also then flies by really fast because you don't really record it in a sense. Emotions actually influence this process quite a bit. This is a bit where the quote of Albert Einstein comes from. If you have a negative emotion, then the moment to moment awareness actually increases by quite a bit. Because if you think about the past, let's see, back in the days, not our days, but evolutionary days, when you saw a tiger, every second actually was important for your survival. So our body started to learn about how to keep track of time in a way that benefited us. If you feel something positive, then this engrossment into the task or this activity actually makes time speed up quite a bit. With retrospective time perception, so when we look at the past, the amount of information we remember and also the number of information pieces or number of memories we have actually determines whether we perceive something as went by really fast or not. If you think about studying, for example, or something which is a routine in a sense, which has a really slow process, and if you think at the past, it usually feels like it went by really fast, even though in the moment it feels to drag on quite a bit. But if you're in a situation, for example, vacation, where you have a lot of exciting new experiences, 2 weeks of vacation sometimes feels like such a long time compared to 2 weeks when you're just sitting at home and doing your regular chores. This also shows that there might be quite a mismatch between prospective and retrospective time perception. But okay, now we're equipped with the mechanisms which are really important about explaining time perception, but why does this now feel faster compared to in the past? So one general explanation that we have is the proportion of life. If you're 10 years old, 1 year is 1/10 of your life, so it feels way longer compared to if you're 50. In relation to the previous years, it doesn't make up that much time. Now this is quite straightforward. The second explanation is also rather straightforward, and that is that our routines simply change over time. So if you're going to university, you experience a lot of new things, in your social life or things that you learn about. But as you age, you start to do more of the same. And if we take what we just learned, so that novel situations create more memories and that makes us perceive time as longer, then this makes sense. To me, this explained why the COVID years, when looking back, felt almost like they were deleted, because we did almost the same things every day. We stayed at home and then maybe went on very small walks that we also saw almost each day. So if there are no new memories formed, and this is how we perceive time in the past, then okay, yeah, this explains it. But it still doesn't explain why, other than that, time also feels to go by way faster than, for example, 10 years ago. For this, I had to delve a bit deeper to find explanations. And for me, two things in particular stood out. So, one still ties a bit to the routines, but it's mainly that our lives are simply more stressful. We are surrounded in a more polarized society. We have military conflicts throughout the world that are more present. We also have financial struggles that are going on. And stress in our life actually causes people to do less risky things and to explore less. And if you explore less, then you also have less novel situations. This way, again, the same pattern kicks in, where you live a more stable, a more simple life, and those tend to fly by faster, at least when looking back. Now, I must note that there is a study of Justina, and I'm not gonna even pretend to know how to pronounce this name. She mentioned that long-term oriented people actually respond to stress in the way that I just described, so they're less exploring and less risky. But impulsive people actually start to risk more and then explore more. So if you're more that type of person, that might explain why this explanation doesn't really stick to your case. Now, the second factor I think is the main culprit, and it's social media. The thing with social media which makes it such a deadly combination is, while we're on it, it grabs our attention. If you're really attentive to a thing, then you don't keep track of time anymore. So time flies by really fast while we're on it. And another side effect it has, I need to give a short explanation about dopamine. There's basic dopamine, which basically are short bursts, and it's responsible for showing that there's a novel or useful thing. And then there's tonic dopamine, which is the baseline level. And social media at the start, these dopamine pulses that we get are phasic dopamine, but if we're on it again and again and again, it actually raises our tonic, so our baseline dopamine. And this leads to the information that we deem as novel or as useful. A lot of that actually gets drowned out because it is not causing the same spike anymore as the social media information. So information that isn't as dopaminergic actually just is not recorded anymore, or does not lead to the same level of, oh hey, I need to keep track of this might be useful. The third thing that is also really insidious from social media is that you switch from one reel to another really fast, and this leads to your brain not having the time or capacity to encode the information that you've just gotten. So you know it probably, I know it for myself, where I watch a useful TikTok and then I watch a lot of them, and then I only remember a small bunch of them because, yeah, my brain just does not have the capacity anymore. And this combination of these three factors, it is attention grabbing, but at the same time it also drowns out other attention grabbing things, and it removes the capacity of your brain to encode the information while you're doing the activity, leads to the activity of going through reels feel to go by really fast in the moment, but there's also no memories to rely on in the past, so it also flies by really fast when looking back of, oh, what did I just do in those 2 hours that I looked at reels? Okay, we already know that social media is not good for your brain, but what can we still do about this? I already teased it that there are still some things, and the first one that I would recommend is to explore new things. Try to plan 2 or 3 weeks for a new activity that you want to try out. You can try it out with friends, you can go to workshops, but just try new things. Sometimes you might even find a new hobby or something which you want to work on in a longer time frame. The second thing I would recommend is to reserve more time to encode the information that you've learned or experienced. So you can do it by journaling, you can also simply do it by recalling the memories you have. But if, for example, you go to a vacation and then you go back to your regular routine and you start binging with social media or something else again, then actually the things that you've experienced still haven't really solidified. And by journaling or just going through these memories again, you can make sure that they are set in stone. And then if you look back on those experiences, time will stretch. And for the third thing is, if social media specifically is a really big thing, I would really recommend to watch the time that you put in there. I have an app that I use to only allow segments of 3 minutes at a time and up to 6 per day. And I have a streak going for half a year, and this alone motivates me to still keep at it. But find some ways to address that specific issue in more detail. But if you're interested in that, I can also create a video about how to go on this topic. But for now, I think this is all I want to say. I just had the realization that life is too precious to let it slip away like this. And if I don't change my behaviors or don't know the information about how to deal with how we perceive time, then this will just happen. And I hope that this information will also be useful for your life. And I hope I get to see you soon. But for now, thank you for your time and see ya.